Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nur Nazira Sofia binti Zainab Bidin. For the chapter 7 macroeconomics, I'm going to do the introduction. So the definition of macroeconomics is a branch of economics that studies how an overall economy, the market, or other systems that operate on a large scale. So macroeconomics also studies the economy-wide phenomena such as inflation, price levels, rate of economic growth, national income, gross domestic product or GDP, and changes in unemployment. These are a few examples that you can add to your textbook. So next, the founder of macroeconomics is J.M. Keynes, 1883 until 1946. Back then, macroeconomics known as Keynesian economics that developed in 1920s and 1930s. J.M. Keynes has written his ideas and all his theories about the working of the whole economy into his book that called The General Theory of Employment, Interest and Money that published in 1936. Before macroeconomics or Keynesian economics has been found, other economists like Adam Smith, Marshall and others, they were called the classical or the neoclassical economists. These economists were concerned with microeconomics and the functioning of individual product, service or factor of production. But in macroeconomics or Keynesian economics, they believe that first, supply creates its own demand. Second, money is demanded merely for transactional purposes, which is to buy goods and services. And lastly, the market mechanism and perfect competition will lead to efficient resource allocation, because macroeconomics studies on overall and how the whole economy works, rather than microeconomics that only focus on the behavior of individuals and firms in making decisions.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Wana Fatah binti Wan Buanan, and I will present to you the next topic in this chapter, which is macroeconomic objectives. There are 5 objectives. First, to achieve full employment or to reduce unemployment. Second, to stabilize general price level or to control inflation. Third, to achieve a steady rate of economic growth. Fourth, to achieve a balance in the balance of payments. And the last one, to have a better quality of life and environment. I will explain to you 2 objectives, and another 3 objectives will explain by Nur Khalida. First, full employment or reducing unemployment. Full employment means those who are willing and able to work are working and can find a suitable job. Full employment is important because it can reduce the unemployment rate. It shows that unemployment creates a lot of social problems such as robberies, drug addictions, family conflict, and others. In some countries, they are given a minimum allowance to the unemployed. If more people are unemployed, the government will have to spend a lot of money paying the allowance to them. It obviously shows that unemployment can reduce the amount of goods and services produced by the country. Second objective is control inflation or maintaining price stability. Inflation is a continuous increase in the price of goods and services that will reduce the value of money or purchasing power. With the same amount of money, people can now buy a lesser quantity of goods and services. Consequently, the cost of living rises and standard of living deteriorates for those whose incomes are fixed. This is why the government needs to control inflation, because it is not good to most members of the society.
Assalamualaikum, my name is Nur Khalida Osman, and I'm going to continue on the macroeconomic objective, which is to achieve a steady rate of economic growth. So, this thing is very important in a country in order to maintain our present living standard, which means that our living standard right now, and in the future to have a better living standard. So, an economy is said to be experiencing growth when its real output increases. For example, if the real GNP of a country increases in 2003 compared to previous year 2002, the economy experiences economic growth in 2003. Okay, the next point, the macroeconomic objective is to have a balance in the balance of payments. So what is balance of payments? Balance of payments is a record of trade and financial transactions between a country and the rest of the world, which means that balance of payments contain trade and financial transactions for a country and other country. So, it is necessary for a country to have a balance in the balance of payments in order to maintain the external value of the country currency, which means that to maintain the country currency itself and its economic stability. The last point for the macroeconomic objective is to have a better quality of life. So what's meant by better quality of life? It means that an increase in the amount of goods and services as well as a better living environment. So, a better living environment means less pollution, more green, less floods and also less crime in a country. So, I'm going to pass it to the next presenter.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nurul Nadirah binti Abdul Razak. I'm from BA 246-2B and I will present about conflicting objectives together with achieving full employment and price stability. A few strategies can be implemented by the government to meet macroeconomic goals. For example, fiscal policy, monetary policy, and direct control. Fiscal policy is concerned with deliberate change in tax and government budget in order to influence labor demand and promote greater economic stability. For example, during the recession, the government will implement an expansionary fiscal policy, which is to increase government spending and reduce tax rates to increase aggregate spending to overcome unemployment problem. Meanwhile, monetary policy includes using monetary instruments such as free market operation, bank rates, and necessary reserve ratio to control the money supply and hence economic activity. Whereas policy that carry out by national banks to control the money supplies and interest rate to overcome economic problem. The government measures are to change the money supply and interest rate to influence aggregate spending in the economy. Expansionary monetary policy is to increase the money supply and reduce interest rate to overcome the problem of deflation. While monetary policy is to reduce the money supply and raise interest rate to address the problem of inflation. Policies that directed specifically at the source of origin of an issue are referred to as direct control. However, policies that aim at achieving one goal can often clash with another. The following are the most important competing goals. The first one is achieving full employment and price stability. Next, achieving steady economic growth rate and a balance in the balance of payment. And lastly is achieving a steady economic growth rate and better quality life. Achieving full employment and price stability. In order to reach full employment, the government must produce additional workers in order to stimulate labor demand. Firms can generate more production and hire more employees as aggregate demand rise, which lowering the unemployment rate. The government will do this by enacting an expansionary fiscal strategy in which taxes are lowered while government spending is expanded. The government may also boost economic demand by expanding the money supply by simple or expansionary monetary policy. For example, the government should lower interest rate to encourage spending and credit growth. The government will offer skills to the unemployed by educational program by implementing a direct control program. And lastly, national productivity and wage rise in conjunction as aggregate demand policy tightens. A significant growth in aggregate demands, on the other hand, will place pressure on the general price level to rise, where it resulting in the issue of inflation. As a result, policies aimed at achieving full employment could worsen inflation and vice versa. That's all. Thank you.
Siti Nursyamim binti Bakar will present another two conflict objectives of macroeconomics. The first one is achieving a steady economic growth rate and a balance of payments. To achieve a higher economic growth rate, more output is needed to be produced. So, in order to produce more output, the production capacity of the economy needs to be increased. One of the ways to do this is by importing capital goods from more advanced countries, but this would cause more cash outflows in the economy. So, when the government wants to achieve economic growth rate, it will cause deficit. The next point is achieving a steady economic growth rate and better quality of life. To achieve a steady rate of economic growth in producing more goods and services, there could be excessive negative externalities in the economy. For example, the country might experience a bad environmental degradation, such as air and water pollution, destruction of the forest, and many more. This can be seen that it is impossible for the government to have economic growth rate without harming the environment, and it will lead to the lower quality of life. That's all from our group. Thank you.